2017, around 11:45, maybe 12 o'clock at night, the inspiration of the Lord came to me and said, hey, read about Jacob's dream. And so I did. And as I read about Jacob's dream and this ladder that reached from the earth to the heavens, I mean, once I finished, it was like I started to rejoice in my spirit. I couldn't sit down, and I had, worked all day. I was, technically fatigued. I was ready to go to bed. I was ready to go to sleep, man, and I could not contain my rejoicing, because what I read explains the deception to deceive God's people. Like I said, it doesn't matter who you think are the real Jews. That doesn't matter. It's who the real Jews really are that matters. And looking at Jacob's dream, we are given some clear indicators who the real Jews are by looking at space exploration. Now, what country is the only country in the history of mankind does the Bible state will be the only country to have the ability to reach heaven? It is self-evident to us that the ladder which reaches from the earth to heaven in Jacob's dream was God's way of declaring and giving only this one nation the capability to achieve space exploration above space into the waters above. This means, my beloved, that no nation, including America, has ever crossed over the firmament above, because to do so means that you must enter into the waters above. And I would like to thank everybody that has been on YouTube explaining that there is a firmament above and showing you that there is a firmament above our heads, that there is water above our heads, have done a marvelous job. We'd like to thank you for that, because you proved God to be true. Now, to suggest such events have already taken place in our recent history is a grand way of discrediting God's promise to Jacob and to his descendants. So as we go through and explain about Jacob's ladder and how it connects to space exploration, and how America achieving this first kind of proves who the real Jews are not, because only the Jews can be the only people to access this area above, this water above our heads. So let's get into it. Okay, so here is where we need to become smarter Christians, because the United States government was never really deceiving us, because they told us that they were going into outer space. And the minute that they acknowledged that they were going into outer space, we as Christians should have realized that they were talking about the area in between the waters in which we see down here with us and those waters in which Jesus Christ raised up above us. Alright, so that area in between the two waters is called space, because there's waters above us and there's waters down here below us. And so the United States government, when they were saying that they were going into outer space, they weren't lying to you. That's the only place that they were going to, was to outer space. In other words, outer space is the area in which is so high in elevation that the oxygen in which we can breathe down here on the earth does not exist. That's where they went to. They went up into the atmosphere, high up into the atmosphere, into an area where oxygen does not exist. This is why the astronauts have to put those suits on. That is really the only purpose that they serve, is to help them breathe up there in the upper atmosphere. word heaven is a word that is telling us about what Jesus Christ, God, did in Genesis chapter 1 when he divided the waters. When you're looking at the word heaven in the written form, the HE means high or above, and the AVEN means waters. So when you're looking at the word heaven, you're looking at the word that is implying the waters above, or the high waters. So any Christian that understood anything about Genesis and the dividing of the waters should have recognized that. So when the United States government was saying that they were going into space, we should have realized that they were going into the area in between the waters which are down here with us, the seas, the oceans, the rivers, the lakes, the ponds, and the waters that were above us, suspended above us, okay? And so that they were exploring this area just beneath the waters above, alright, just slightly beneath this water above us. And so when you're looking at the word heaven, this is what the word heaven means, the waters above. Now, if we go to Hosea chapter 10 verse 8, the word heaven or aven is written as AVN, and the prophet Hosea, he was speaking about the high places of the waters, or aven, right? And this was being spoken about what Jacob encountered at Bethel, right? When he learned that Bethel was the gateway to heavens, or to the waters above, right? Where you actually skip over the space in between, you see. So when America, declared that they were going into outer space, they were simply saying that they were just going into the upper atmosphere of the space in which we all live in. We live in this space. We're in between the waters. And so when you see the space shuttle go up and you see the space shuttle come back down, it only went into the upper atmosphere, or what you call the space in between these two waters. And so this is so when you're talking about space, you're talking about biblical, a biblical term.
Hello and welcome. In part 4 of this series, we will examine the question, is space a vacuum, or is it in fact water? As the great late Nikola Tesla stated, there is no energy in matter other than that received from the environment. We'll get back to that later on. The Space Power Facility at NASA's Plumbrook Station, Sandusky, Ohio, is the world's largest and most powerful space environment facility. Located on a 6,400-acre property, construction costs, upkeep, and maintenance are astronomical. Even one would think it to make perfect sense to have astronauts train here and prepare them for the supposed vacuum of space. No astronaut training is going on here. The enormous vacuum chamber makes a high vacuum, which is 3 levels before the supposed much higher vacuum of outer space, as we can see here. Considering that the suits these guys here are wearing reminded me of one thing: bubble wrap. Now let's see what happens to bubble wrap if we put it in a table vacuum pump.
Oh my God, look at it! Woo! Oh my God, look at it!
And for anybody who has any doubts how powerful a vacuum can be and what it can do to a puny tin can of a spaceship, a wimpy space suit, or a small leak even in outer space, check this out.
We're loading.
42-inch 480 wall steel pipe, 3 to a truck. Pipe are about 40 feet in length.
Artificial gravity failure.
Shit.
We're loading them with an vacuum attachment on a 450 John Deere hoe. Pipe weigh about, I think I said the pipe weigh about 9,000 pounds a piece. This vacuum attachment will pick, this one I think will pick 30,000 pounds. That's 15 tons just on a vacuum.
The ridiculous spacesuits, which the Hollywood and NASA Freemasons like for us to accept as real, would suffer the same fate in the vacuum of space as bubble wrap in a tabletop vacuum chamber, being popped and depleted of oxygen instantly. And seeing as the human body mainly consists of water, the following clip will demonstrate what would happen to these astronauts.
You can see a little bit of bubbles start going. And, whoa, it started boiling. How cool is that?
But the ultimate and most dangerous test was a huge, specially constructed vacuum chamber.
They were able to pull all the air out to create a big vacuum. That way we could test our suits to make sure there was no leakage.
One such test narrowly avoided disaster. Jim LeBlanc was the test subject in the vacuum chamber.
This is one of the rare instances where they tried to use a spacesuit in a vacuum chamber, but quickly realized that it's impossible in a high vacuum, so they immediately started using swimming pools to train and remained silent on the absence of vacuum chamber training by astronauts, which basically is a lie by omission.
As I stumbled backwards, I could feel the saliva on my tongue starting to bubble just before I went unconscious. And that's kind of the last thing I remember.
Essentially, he had no pressure on the outside of his body, and that's a very unusual case to get, and there's very little in the medical literature as to what happens when you have that. There's a lot of conjecture, that your fluids will boil,
You can see a little bit of bubbles start going.
I could feel the saliva on my tongue starting to bubble.
They weren't able to construct proper spacesuits, and they didn't want their spacemen to get boiled, so they went to the swimming pool.
Here's where they simulate fixing a space shuttle, fixing the ISS, or working with other modules.
It's the same as far as every rail, as far as every bolt, as far as where every rail should be in place. They have to go turn a bolt 98 times, space.
And which ISS module is in the pool right now?
Pretty much everything that we have in the pool except for the Russian segment.
They went from a no-pressure environment to a pressure environment, which makes no sense and simulates zero gravity only and exclusively for the camera.
He had no pressure on the outside of his body, and
I'm astonished by how difficult it is to actually move around. The idea, like from the movie Gravity, that you could like reach out and grab something with one of these gloves? No way. Not gonna happen.
They have to go turn a bolt 98 times.
That you could like reach out and grab something with one of these gloves? No way. Not gonna happen.
But what if there was some covert agenda that prepares these so-called astronauts for an anticipated advance into a liquid expand?
Oh shit. I'm recalibrating sensors. The entire region is filled with some kind of organic fluid. This isn't space. It's matter.
What was it Tesla had said? There is no energy in matter other than that received from the environment. If this holds true, how could billions of galaxies consisting of billions of stars receive all their energy from the nothingness of a complete vacuum of space? There's only one environment that actually provides not only energy, but apparently carries and transmits life itself, and that is water. It is also the only substance that exists in all three aggregate forms: solid, liquid, and gas.
Okay, so the relevant sage pretty much proved to you that NASA's intent of going up into the waters above had to be canceled out, and they had to settle for just going up into the area in between the waters above heaven and the waters below, which is what they call space. So they did achieve going into space travel. They did, and that's true. Alright? But what they did not do was go into the waters above, which is pretty much their intentions to do. They want to enter in heaven without going through that gate in which Jacob dreamed about. Now, the gate to heaven is located in the land of Israel, and God gives this land to Jacob and to his seed. God also states that Jacob and his seed would have to be brought back into this land. That's very important to remember, because they would be spread out into every country on this earth. Alright, and that's going back to the last video that we made when we were explaining that Christ cannot judge based upon the outwardly appearance of people, because we don't look like, the original people of the land of Israel anymore. Alright, some of us look like people of the lands in which we were dwelling in. But nonetheless, one of the details or indicators to help us determine who the real Jews are is Jacob's description of the house of God being dreadful. Now, keep in mind, what did Jacob see? He saw the angels ascending and descending on this ladder, okay, coming down into Bethel. And in Bethel, Jacob says that this is the gate to heaven. Keep that in mind. Now, why does Jacob call the house of God, or this place or this location where the gate to heaven is dreadful? You have to go back to Genesis chapter 3 to understand this. In Genesis chapter 3 verse 24, the Lord commanded the cherubims or the angels to keep that flaming sword, to turn every way, to keep the way of the tree of life. Now, to understand what that flaming sword is, you have to understand that this means conflict. Alright, this means conflict, and there's conflict where? In the Middle East, dealing with Israel. Alright, so the angels, if the people that are in the land of Israel today are the real Jews, then there would be no conflict, and we're going to get to that later on in this video. But keep that in mind. The angels come down, alright, and they come down, and they come down with that flaming sword, and this gate is the only way for them to go to and from the heavens above down here to the earth. This is the only gate that they can use. Alright, and this is what God showed Jacob, that this is the gateway. This is the place where those angels come down. And one of the things that they do is they keep people from accessing this location. Even though the people are living all over that land right now, it's invisible to their sights. The angels keep it out of their sights. You can walk right past this gate and not see it. How many of you realize and can accept that when Jesus Christ was resurrected, those people who saw him after his resurrection were selected by God to witness him? Everybody else did not see him. Jesus Christ could walk straight down the street after his resurrection and be invisible to you, but the man that was chosen of God to see him was permitted to see him in his resurrected form. Everybody else, he was invisible to. How many of you understand that our God is the God of of the invisible kingdom. Alright, he is not only the God of what you see, but the Most High is the invisible God. So the angels could keep this gate from being detected. And one of the signatures that the angels are doing their job is this flaming sword, keeping this conflict. So every one of us that was born in this day and age understands that in the Middle East there has been nothing but conflict after conflict after conflict after conflict. Alright, now I want to turn to something that Jesus Christ said. That he said that unto us, or unto you, it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God. But unto them that are without, all these are done in a parable. What is Jesus Christ saying? That all of you who pick up this Bible and read it at face value, and only accept it at face value and don't understand the mysteries of what the Bible is talking about, you're not in the kingdom of God. That seeing they may see and not perceive. Alright, so our God is an invisible God. You have to understand that. Just like I said, when Jesus Christ was resurrected, how many of you could testify and believe that Jesus Christ was resurrected if you really knew that when Jesus Christ was resurrected, only those chosen of God could see him? Alright, so if Jesus Christ walked into 7-Eleven and there was 20 people in 7-Eleven, only 2 or 3 people could say that they saw him. The rest of you would say, no, he did not walk in there. Y'all would look at us like we were crazy. You see, because we understand the mysteries. Alright, that seeing they may see and not perceive, and hearing they may hear and not understand, lest at any time they should be converted and their sins be forgiven them. So you got to understand that it was given to some of us to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God. That's why I'm trying to tell you that Jacob's ladder is dealing with space exploration. Jacob's ladder proves who the real Jews are. Now let's go to another parable that Jesus spoke about that talks about Jacob's ladder and this void in between the two waters. Alright, the waters below and the waters above. And Princess Leah, can you do the honors?
There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence.
Okay, my beloved. Jesus spoke about the great gulf being fixed. Another way of saying gulf is void. Now, where did we hear that before? We heard about that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, when the Lord said,
In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void. The darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
So when the Lord spoke about the great gulf being fixed, he was going back to what he created. He understood that he created in between these two waters a great gulf. Now, one of the interesting things that Jesus says is that so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. So no matter how many space shuttles that they fly up there into outer space, they cannot enter in to the waters above or into heaven. The only way is through Jesus Christ. But NASA and all of these countries, they think that they can escape this space or this void. They cannot escape this space or void, and that's what he's explaining in this parable. Is Jesus truly talking about a rich man and Lazarus? No, he's not. But he explained it to you in the parable, so that us who were in the kingdom of God could get the understanding from it. You see? Okay, my beloved. Let's take this thing a step further and explain to you that Jesus spoke about them trying to inhabit the area in between the two waters, which we call space. And Jesus, in explaining this to us, told us that this is the way to get destroyed, because God did not intend for man to live inside this space. Alright, so Princess Leah, if you could do the honors of reading Matthew chapter 7 verse 13 and 14.
Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it.
Alright, so enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. So you have all of these countries and companies that are planning on taking trips to the moon. They're planning on putting casinos and putting Disneyland on Mars. They're planning to put hotels up out there into space. Alright, but Jesus said that this is the way to destruction. Why? Because you're not supposed to be there. There's supposed to be a space in between us and the heavens above. Okay? And he says, enter in the strait gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. And that's a true statement, because there's going to be a very few people on the earth that actually buckle down to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God. I mean, my God, we tell you, it is written plainly for you to understand that God does not dwell in any temples made of hands. But you guys still go to church. You still go to church coming out thinking that you're spiritual. Alright? That's going to get you to destruction. You're not going to enter, you're not in that narrow gate. Because you could not explain these things. The only people that are going to enter in that narrow gate are those that understand the mysteries to the kingdom of God. Now, let's prove to you that when Jesus is talking about broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, he's talking about their space explorations and their plans to inhabit space with hotels and fast food restaurants and car dealerships or whatever, right? He's going to destroy that because they're not supposed to be there. And for that, we can go to Isaiah chapter 14, starting at verse 12.
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms?
Alright, so God said that he's going to bring them down to where? They're going to be brought down to hell, because they're not supposed to be in that great gulf. They was never supposed to go and put a space station up there in outer space. They was never supposed to go and put satellites up into that void up there. Alright, that is a neutral territory between those up in heaven and us down here on the earth. Alright, so they was never supposed to tamper with that. Alright, so Isaiah wrote, For thou hast said in thy heart, ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Alright, this is why they didn't care if Obama became president or if George Bush became president and then now Donald Trump became president, because they don't run the world from the White House no more. They stopped doing that in 1955 when they started to go up and put that space station up there. Alright, then when they started to put all those pieces to the puzzle up there and set their nest among the stars. Now let's read the rest of this in Obadiah, and then we're going to close this video and then come back with the stuff that we couldn't put in this video this time. Alright, so this is Obadiah 1 and 3, explaining exactly what Jesus Christ said when he said, "For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat." So as time goes on and they begin to take people up into taking trips to the moon, a lot of y'all gonna be down with it. A lot of y'all just like, see, this is why the Lord allowed King's Dominion to be created, or Disney World to be created, or Six Flags to be created, or all of these resorts and all of these places for people to go on vacation at. That was the first step to see if you would buy in to going into outer space. Alright, to fulfill what Jesus Christ said, that broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. See, a lot of y'all thought that meant something else. It did not mean something else. Alright, now let's go to Obadiah, and let's listen to Obadiah tell us the same exact thing that Isaiah told us.
The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, though thou dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord.
Alright, so the Lord said he's going to bring these people down that have went up there and put their nest inside that great gulf, that space. Okay, obviously this is talking about space exploration. And with that, we say peace until the next video.